Great. Recording has started. I'd like to welcome Tim Ramirez from the San Francisco Water Department and John Fournet from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, Jane Mark and Aaron Peth from Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. So thank you for all who are showing up. We're going to learn a lot about what's happening over on the watershed. And one of the objectives of
They're having trouble.
one of the objectives, I think I'm talking over you, Jan, Ruby, sorry.
Oops.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay, Betsy.
We'll probably, thanks, Jan. Jan, maybe you should, yeah, okay, great. But anyway, one of the objectives of tonight's meeting is not just to get, the whole.
Okay, it's on over here, Chris.
You know what? I wonder if it's possible, Tim, to start muting. Can you mute people as they come in?
Okay, you should be good.
Okay, great. Yeah, we don't. Sometimes people, I've said some embarrassing things when I didn't know I was muted, so we don't want to do that. So, I just wanted to say also that one of the objectives of tonight's meeting isn't just. It's really to just get us started on learning what's been happening and what's happening now, but also to keep a relationship in the.
I don't know why it's so. I can't hear anything.
No, there's no sound.
I mean, there's some sound, but it's very low.
Okay, Peggy, can you hear me? Peggy Lou, can you mute
them.
yourself?
I just muted them.
Okay, great, thanks. Sorry about that. This is but anyway, I just want to say that Kings Mountain Association is really planning on establishing long-term relationships for the entire community so that we're all aware of what's going on in the future. A lot of us met Tim a few years ago when he came and spoke, and it's great to have him back and great to have people from Open Space here as well. Just a couple housekeeping things. We are being recorded, so everybody should know that. We're going to try to keep this meeting to an hour if possible. We got a slightly late start, so we might go over a bit. There will be an opportunity for question and answer at the end. We're suggesting using the chat room. But really, I just think we should get going and get started. And Tim, we really appreciate you coming. And if you want to just start the program now, that would be awesome. Thanks.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for the invitation. And I will share a quick story that Betsy knows already. When we were getting to the end of our environmental review process for the trail project, I had a piece of paper, literally, that was the sign-in sheet from the meeting we had with the Kings Mountain Association probably 4 or 5 years before that. And I was waiting for a chance to check back in, and I had it at the top of my stack when I woke up one day, and before I could send Betsy an email, she sent me one and said she wanted to get together and make sure that we checked in. And so the stars were aligned. We were on the same page. And it's been a long time since I've had a chance to chat with folks, so I'm happy for the opportunity, and also really happy that John Fournet is here with me from the PUC. John's our Peninsula Watershed Area Manager. He's been with us for many years and is a fountain of knowledge, and especially with this area up along Highway 35, he knows it like the back of his hand. So I'll do the talking for a little bit, but when we get to questions and answers, you very likely will hear from John because he has a lot more depth in this area than I do. I'm also grateful that Jane and Aaron were able to join us tonight. We've been talking quite a bit with our neighbors across the highway, and this is a good chance for us also to let all of you know what we've been doing together, and also relates to this same part of the county. So I'm going to share my screen and start a very short PowerPoint, and then I think we're going to pass the baton to Jane and Aaron, let them do the thing, and then we'll do questions and answers. And if anybody has a problem, please feel free to use the chat function. And when we get to Q&A, we'll use the chat function also for questions. You can either say, I have a question, and just type that in, and I can call on you. I can see all your names. Or you could just ask your question, and I can just repeat it so everybody has a chance to hear it. and we'll get them answered. So I'm going to start to share my screen. Here we go. This is always the tricky part for us as well to make sure that it works correctly. Can you guys all see it okay? Aaron's nodding his head. Thank you, Aaron. It's always good to get confirmation that it's working the way it's supposed to. Let me try to go to presentation mode here. Okay, presentation mode. I can see Aaron nodding. He's right at the top. Thanks, Aaron. So here's my intro slide. This is just a nice shot of the watershed looking south down the San Andreas Fault. You can see the ridge up to the right, and that's Highway 280 on your left, and that's Lower Crystal Springs Reservoir, and then Upper Crystal Springs in the background. So we're going to follow the agenda along. Here we go. You know what? I grabbed the wrong presentation, John. That's hysterical. Hold on, please. I clicked
It's
on
Freudian.
That's really funny.
Oh, Lord.
Just to click on my presentation.
Tim's had a way longer day than me. Let's give Tim a hand. He drove out to the Central Valley today, then Sonoma, then North Berkeley, Albany.
Okay, we're back. How's that?
Sweet.
Thanks for the filler, John. So this is a different intro slide, but it's a little closer to home. This is south of where all of you are. This is the Fife Cahill Ridge, and that's Pilarcitos Reservoir in the background. And this is the current side. So I think now we're ready to go. So I'll talk about the trail just briefly, and that's the reason I think I had a chance to come and visit with all of you probably 4 years ago. And we hit some pretty major milestones with this project in the last few weeks, and that's really what we wanted to talk about. But I'm going to do a quick reminder about the trail project for those that maybe don't know as much about it. But this is a mouthful. We call it the Southern Skyline Boulevard Ridge Trail Extension Project. We promised not to call the trail that. We're going to give it a different name, a shorter name, a handier name. That's the name of the capital project that we're working on. This is a shot of the watershed, a plan view, which I think all of you probably know very well. This is our 23,000 acres. It's the Peninsula watershed. It often goes by the Crystal Springs watershed. It actually is two different watersheds. It's the San Mateo Creek drainage, which drains out through Crystal Springs Reservoir to the bay. And then it's Pilarcitos Reservoir, which drains out to the ocean through Half Moon Bay. And the green is our property boundary. This map shows the trails on the watershed. The dark black is the existing trail system. And of course, you can see Fife Cahill that runs to the north of Highway 92. Use my cursor here if you can see that. There's Fife Cahill. And then we also have the planned trails in red. And I wanted to talk about these on the ridge. So this is the area that is just south of 92. Here's Highway 92 right here. And this little red section here, and then the longer extension that goes down and connects to the GGNRA, which is across the street from Purisima. This is the southern extension. So we'll talk about these two red areas in the next couple of slides, and that's where the project is. So this is a map from the CEQA document, which was put out during scoping over 4 years ago. This is something you probably have seen before. I probably used this same map when I met with you the first time. This to the north, this inset box, shows our existing Fife Cahill Trail, but also this new, what we call Universal Access Loop Trail. One of the things we're doing with this project is really trying to step up our education programs and also provide more access to the Fife Cahill system. And then part of doing that is to create an ADA loop that would allow school programs and a lot more people that really can't access the entire ridge an opportunity to walk and have that experience. And we're having a lot of interpretive signs in here as well, and sort of buffering up the cemetery gate entry so people would be able to either come in if they needed assistance, or school buses could actually pull in as well with school programs and turn around and drop the kids off, and they could walk this loop and get a sense of the 9 miles that otherwise is a harder trail to navigate with young people. So that's a part of this project as well. New staging area we're talking about as well. on this side of Highway 92 that would give us more room to spread out when we have events. And then there's an easement that currently is being held by the Bay Area Ridge Trail Council, which is this yellow line here that goes through Skylawn Cemetery. And that's open now to the public. And as part of the project, we're going to transfer that easement to the PUC. So we would be the operators of the entire ridge, the blue here, Fifel Cahill, the yellow, which is the easement through the Skylawn Cemetery, and then this new trail here, the southern section, which we'll talk about right now. As a reminder, the Fifel Cahill Trail program is going to be the same. We're talking about the docent program. So we've been running that program. John's been running that program now for, going on over 15 years, right, John? And
yes, we kicked it off in 83.
2003. Not 83.
Feels like 83.
John's the person that trains the docents. So if you're a docent, you know John. If you want to be a docent, contact John. He's the one that trains our trail leader volunteers to run those programs. Again, and those are bikes, hikes, and also equestrian. And so we're going to jump now to the new section of the trail, and I'll change maps on you. I'm actually stealing the Ridge Trail Council's map, and we're talking about this area that goes south of 92 all the way down and then connects to the Flagler Estate, which is across from Carissimo, and it goes down right to here. So this is the new trail that we're building. This is not something that exists right now, so it's the construction project. This is not a road, and it's going to be a small road, but it'll be a trail. It'll be a multi-use trail. We're going to have a new trailhead right here at 92, a 20-car parking lot. There'll be 2 new restrooms along the alignment as well. And the big thing with this trail that we're going to do in terms of its operation is we're going to experiment with a permit program. So this will not be as restrictive as the docent program. We have to contact a docent, reach out to them, and sign up for a trip. You'll be able to go and get a permit on our website, and with that permit, you'd be able to go out on your own and hike the trail. This is very similar to what East Bay Mud does in their local watersheds here in the East Bay. And it's a new thing for us. We wanted people to have the experience, and we didn't think it needed to be as restrictive. This trail borders the highway. The other trail, Fifel Cahill, splits right down the middle of the watershed, and it has drinking water reservoirs on both sides and a lot of endangered species. And we don't have those things at this location. And so we wanted to find a way to still manage the trail, but to have it be a little less restrictive. And so we're going to try the permit system. And before I leave that slide, let me just get you caught up on where we are. After a very long environmental review process, city planning last summer released the draft DIR. Many of you probably got copies of that and maybe even made comments on it. And then they released the response to comments this April, and they had their certification hearing in April, and our commission adopted the project just last month in May. So at this point, we are ready to put the project out for bid for construction. And generally, we're trying to do that and have somebody selected by the end of the calendar year, and they would start next calendar year in 2022. And it would take at least a full year, maybe 18 months. It depends when they start for completion. So this is a project that hasn't started yet, but we're a lot closer to actually getting people out into the field and getting them working. So that's the trail up. This is another quick update I wanted to share with you. This is something that we've been working on with CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE, as you probably well know, is managing this area in terms of their role as SRA. This is a state responsibility area. They're the firefighters, right? Our folks help, and we certainly fight fires when they're small and we catch them. And that happened quite a bit in August last summer with the lightning strikes. But CAL FIRE and the locals always come to help. Sometimes we're the first on the scene, but we need their help. And one of the ways they've been able to help is to do prescribed burns on our dam faces, usually in the spring. We just did San Andreas and Pilocitos dams a couple of weeks ago in June. And this project, the CAL FIRE SFPUC prescribed burn project, is something that also needs to go through CEQA. And so they released a draft mitigated negative declaration in, must have been February or March. Got a lot of comments from people, especially up here along the east side of the watershed, these communities. The areas they're talking about proposing maybe to burn are these darker red areas. You can see them numbered on the map. And as a consequence of the interest and the fact that they really felt like they needed to clarify some of the things in the document, they agreed to republish that draft mitigated negative declaration. And so we're waiting for that to happen. It hasn't come out yet, but it will soon. And then there'll be another round of public comment. And then hopefully they will be able to move forward. And like the dam faces, we would be their partners. So it's our land, but they're the people that would be in charge of the burn. And so they'd have their staff out there. We'd work with them to do the surveys in advance and after, but they would be the ones conducting the burns. And so you'll notice there is an area up here also on the highway, 35. If anybody is not aware of this effort and you would like to be in the loop and make sure you get this mitigated negative declaration when it comes out, the CEQA document, to comment on it, please let me know and reach out to me or to John, and we'll make sure that we get you on CAL FIRE's list so you have that opportunity. So that's something to keep your eye on that is coming in the near future. I also wanted to talk about some work that we're doing up on the ridge that maybe I'm guessing most of you have noticed. And maybe you thought we were building the trail, but we can't build the trail yet. We have to get somebody selected as the contractor. But we are doing quite a bit of work on our Skyline fuel break. And I'm not going to do it justice with the photos that I have, but I have just a handful to show. And the real driver here, besides the ongoing risk with fire, is the sudden oak death effect on our tan oak stand in the middle of the redwood forest at the southern end of the property. So this is right up at the southern boundary of our property, moving north through the redwoods. And this is just an example, I'm sure that many of you have seen in your neighborhoods as well, of what happened to the tan oaks. We were aware of the sudden oak death problem. We did some real experimental work with some leading pathologists with UC Berkeley and from the universities to try to protect these trees. And unfortunately, that's not what happened, and they all got it, and they all died. And so this has been a real concern for us from a fire standpoint in terms of the risk. And so we've really redoubled our efforts to get out there and to address that with some help from some contractors and from our tree crew and from our staff. So this is just an example of what we've been doing. We take down the trees that are dead. We've been able to get some contractors out to help us process these trees. And so they've helped us cut them up. And then this little guy right here basically spreads them out on site and mulches them. So if you've seen equipment and people up on the highway or on our side of the road, that's what they're doing. It's John and his staff out there with the contractors overseeing them, getting a lot of work done to try to minimize our risk from this vegetation that unfortunately has died, and trying to do our best to always minimize the risk from wildfire. So this is going to be on for the course of the summer. And again, if you have questions about it, please reach out and let us know. We'll make sure we get you guys answers to your questions. But it will be a busy summer up on the ridge. There's a lot of material. And that's what people have been doing the last few weeks, if you've seen them up there. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that all the things I just talked about, fortuitously, were just written up in Estuary Magazine, which is circulated both a hard copy and online. And this is the URL for that. I will send Betsy and Marlene's email that has this, and they can circulate it as well to all of you, and you can go and find it. So this is the link if you wanted to go and find it yourself. And it covers the trail. It talks about the work on the fuel. And it's a little bit of optimistic trail to a fire-safe watershed, a little bit of a play on words also. It's never going to be a safe fire watershed. We're trying to always minimize our risk. Fires are going to start, and we do our best to make sure when that happens that we get to them quickly and keep them small. And all of the work we do is really centered around that approach. And I'm going to wrap up right there, and I think I'm going to pass the baton now over to Jane and to Aaron. I'm going to stop. While Jane calls up her presentation.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Tim. Aaron's going to pull up the presentation, and as he's doing that, maybe I can provide a little bit more of an introduction of myself and of Aaron. So first of all, it is truly an honor to be here and meeting with the Kings Mountain Association. When Tim first reached out to us about this opportunity to join him and John in this meeting with the community, we definitely wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. So a little bit about Mid-Penn. I have a few slides here that Erin's going to go through. I thought we'll take an opportunity to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, our abbreviated title, Mid-Penn. We do have 2 mission statements, actually, particularly because we have, since we established ourselves in 1972, we have expanded our jurisdiction to the San Mateo County coast in 2004 through an annexation process. So our missions are shown on the screen here, and it's really to build upon this regional greenbelt of open space that we will keep in perpetuity to protect, restore our natural environment, and of course provide opportunities for ecologically sensitive public enjoyment and education, which includes, of course, public access opportunities and interpretive education. And then on the coast side, where we expanded to in 2004, we are also preserving the rural character, supporting viable agricultural uses of the land resources on the coast. So thank you. Next slide, Erin. So a little bit about us, Mid-Penn. We are a public agency, a special district created back in 1972. In fact, we will be celebrating our 25th anniversary very shortly. It's very exciting to think about that. Within our jurisdiction, we have over 770,000 constituents. We do have a board of directors with 7 board members that are elected by our constituents. We are primarily funded by property tax. So all of our funding does come from the residents who pay into the property tax roll. Within our land ownership, there are 26 open space preserves in 3 counties, primarily in Santa Clara and San Mateo. We have a few parcels in Santa Cruz. There's over 65,000 acres, and we operate, maintain, and provide to the public over 240 miles of trails. Our preserves are free, so our visitors do not pay any parking fee to come into our trailhead parking facilities and open to the public. Our headquarters building is in Los Altos, if any of you have ever visited us out there, and we have many sites, offices out in the field as well. We have 180 employees with 1,000 plus volunteers. We could not do what we do without the awesome volunteers that help support our land management, resource management, and obviously our docents and volunteers who help with interpretive programming. And then most recently in 2014, our constituents, the voters in Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Santa Cruz County supported and approved a $300 million general obligation bond back in 2014. And this allows us to continue implementing our mission with acquiring more lands, doing more stewardship activities, resource management activities, and of course, building more public trails, parking areas, and facilities that support public access. Next. And so here's a map for all of you in terms of our jurisdiction. For the past 40 years, we've been primarily focused on acquisition. And in the recent years, we are now doing more and more planning efforts to look at opportunities for more public access to our preserves, our lands. So our boundaries extend all the way north, which is south of Pacifica, to the east, to San Carlos, down south towards Los Gatos, from the Pacific coast all the way to the San Francisco Bay. And within this jurisdiction, as I mentioned earlier, there's 26 preserves and over 65,000 acres. And what's exciting is that each and every one of these preserves have a variety of different types of trail uses, whether it's hiking to equestrian to mountain bicycling uses, and of course multi-use, all three, all in one trail alignment. So we continue to expand our trail system and connecting to other trails, like trails up to the trail that Tim just talked about, the Southern Skyline Boulevard Bay Area Ridge Trail extension that is happening on the Peninsula watershed lands. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to touch on one of the projects that we are going to point out today, and then I'll touch on a few other projects. Aaron?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jane, for that. Yeah, very excited to be here to tell you all about a couple projects we're working on in Purisima Creek Redwoods here. I'll start out with the first one that has a direct tie-in to Tim's, the trail Tim was talking about, the South Skyline Ridge Trail extension. So this project is a feasibility study of a multi-use trail crossing of Skyline Boulevard, as well as a study of an expansion of our Northridge parking area. So this showing that the map that Tim had on earlier. So our project location is located here near the southern extent of SFPUC's planned trail. This is our Northridge parking lot along Skyline Boulevard that I'm sure many of you are familiar with what that looks like. So this really is a project that's kind of been spawned by SFPUC's trail. this feasibility study is a great opportunity that we're looking into for a multi-use trail connection across Skyline Boulevard that would connect SFPUC's trail that currently is kind of an out and back trail and connect it to the existing trail network within Purisima Creek Redwoods. So that existing trail network in Purisima Creek Redwoods is really extensive and does connect to a great existing and planned regional trail network as well. So within this area, we have the Northridge parking area right here. We have the Bay Area Ridge Trail alignment that SFPUC is currently planning. There's the Beta C Trail that's currently undergoing planning and looking at by Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST. And then also in this area, there is the Purisima to the Sea Trail. That's another project we'll talk to you about shortly that Midpen's also leading. And also in this area, why this is such a key connection here that we're looking at is there's already some alignment of Bay Area Ridge Trail within Purisima Creek Redwoods. Right now that does go and cross the highway already and connect to these trails down here in the county parks, and then going into Cal Water's property there and Bear Gulch along Skyline. So this project is really at a great intersection of all these key regional trail routes, and is quite the exciting opportunity for us to work with all our partners in this area. All those partners I just mentioned, Bay Area Ridge Trail, SFPUC, and POST, are all great partners within this project that Midpen's leading this feasibility study, but it really couldn't be done without all their assistance. And so just to give everyone a couple of pictures of what we're looking at for Northridge parking area and this feasibility study. So as I mentioned, there's really two key components of this. There is looking at a trail crossing of Skyline Boulevard, and then we're also looking at that potential parking area expansion of the Northridge parking lot. So the trail crossing, the area that we'll be looking at the feasibility of this trail crossing in, really extends just kind of a little north and south of the existing Northridge parking area. We're hoping to, cluster any improvements around there. And so this will really be the heart of our feasibility study, is looking at a safe place to cross the highway around here. For the parking area expansion, there's this existing gravel lot we have here at the Northridge lot. And just to the west of it here, you'll see some people are actually parking in here right on this aerial, but this is a kind of flat existing grassland area that we'd be looking to study expanding into this area to accommodate more vehicles. And so going into this and what exactly this feasibility study entails for this, looking at the parking lot expansion and the Ridge Trail crossing, what does that all include? So that scope includes these boundary and topographical surveys, traffic study, cultural resources surveys, biological surveys of both special status plants and animals, as well as a geotechnical engineer study to look at the soil. And what all these studies really go into is creating these opportunities and constraints that help influence this preliminary design. It's roughly 10% design. That's all conceptual of what this parking area expansion might look like, as well as what the crossing might look like. And a key component of that is really this traffic study. Obviously, safety is a big concern here on the highway. This Northridge parking lot is located at a spot that's relatively straight along the highway, but we know there's a lot of curves there. There's potential for speeding. So that traffic study will be a key component in looking at a safe location for this crossing and identifying any potential improvements that could help increase the safety of users of this crossing. So all of these studies will go into informing this preliminary design, this conceptual design of the parking area expansion, as well as the crossing, what that'll all look like. And this is really actually great timing. We're so fortunate that Tim extended this invite to us right now, because this project, we're really looking to kick it off within the next few months here in the summer and really get that process rolling. And as part of this, there will definitely be opportunities for public input. So we're glad to be here in front of you tonight to really get the word out about this one. And one thing that I do want to hit on is that this project, as we have it funded and as our scope now, is really focused on this feasibility study. So to get to any type of construction or implementation of this project, there's a lot further steps that need to be taken that we aren't at currently. There's securing funding, there's project permitting, including Caltrans because it's a state highway on Skyline. There's environmental review, and then there's all at the very end there's construction of these improvements. So those are all to be determined out in the future, but for right now we're really focusing on that feasibility study of looking at these opportunities and constraints of the parking lot expansion and looking for a safe crossing location. So with that, I will turn it back to Jane to go over two other projects we're working on at Verissima.
Thank you, Aaron.
When do you take questions?
I think we have
Sorry,
just a few more slides. Is it
Okay,
Mike?
great.
Yeah, so if we could just make it through the last few slides, and
Sure.
we're happy to answer questions. There'll definitely be time to do that. So in addition to what Aaron was sharing with the multimodal trail crossing across from Verissima Creek Redwoods, we are also looking at what's called a multimodal access study. I think all of you may acknowledge that during this pandemic, there's been such increased opportunities for people to go outside to nature and enjoy the outdoors. So trails, parks, and open spaces are definitely being well used. And in Mid-Penn, within our 26 open space preserves, we have definitely seen increase in visitation, particularly with lots of people driving to our preserves. So many of our parking lots have experienced capacity issues. So for Verissima Creek Redwoods, as you can see here, we do have 3 trailhead parking locations And the smallest one is the one down here, and we often have experienced parking constraints at these locations. So one of the things that our board of directors is very interested in is exploring ways that we can encourage our preserve visitors to consider other options besides driving, themselves to a preserve parking lot. So we are going to be starting what's known as a multimodal access study for the entire Purisima Creek Redwoods Preserve, looking at our existing parking access challenges, meaning, the parking congestion that we face at some of our locations, and then also studying and understanding what visitor behaviors and when are the peak times for visits and such. We are going to be working with consultants, transportation planning consultants, to identify strategies on how to address parking demand, traffic issues, and better manage the visitation to our preserves. So our board of directors just approved the contract with the consultant last night, and we're also going to be starting this study this summer. Okay, next. So Erin also mentioned and pointed out in an earlier map another regional trail project that we're working on. It's the Purisima to the Sea Trail and Parking Area. Just to get you some orientation, the green is the Purisima Creek Redwoods Preserve. This line here is Highway 1. And of course, here's the coastline. And then there's existing trails that are existing at Purisima Creek Redwoods. So we are also doing a feasibility study in this area, looking at connecting the trails at Purisima Creek Redwoods through properties that we've acquired over the years, all the way down to Highway 1. As many of you may know, along Highway 1, there are portions of the California Coastal Trail. So we're looking at a feasibility study that will look at trail alignments to connect the existing trails at Purisima Creek Redwoods and bringing it all the way to Highway 1. And that's approximately 7 miles potentially of new trails that would be planned and permitted and studied and built in the future. And so as part of the feasibility study, we're going to be looking at a new potential parking area along Verde Road. So this is another study in terms of conceptual design on the type of parking design that might happen down here. We are also this project is also starting, and we're going to start stakeholder engagement and public outreach. So this is a great opportunity to give all of you a heads up about this feasibility study. So you now have heard 3 feasibility studies that are going to be taking place here at our Purisima Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve. And there's definitely an opportunity for all of you to learn more about the work that we're doing. We would encourage you to sign up on our website here, and that will allow you to be added to our email distribution list. So when there are public meetings or information to be shared about these projects, all 3 projects, you will get an email notification. So Erin has a little arrow here showing on our website where this is. We're going to provide a copy of this presentation to Marlene so that she can share it with all of you. But here's the website link as well. And then next. And then staff contact information. So as Tim mentioned earlier, I'm Jane Mark, and then Erin here. Erin is leading up the Highway 35 multi-use trail crossing and parking study. We have 2 other planners who are leading the other projects. The multimodal access study is led by our senior planner, Tina Hugg. And then the Purisima to the Sea Trail and Parking Study is led by our senior planner, Gretchen Louston. So we have a full suite of planners working on a number of these studies, and it's really exciting. So, and also I just want to say, in terms of the objectives of today's meeting, in terms of establishing long-term relationships with the community, we are just really excited here to hear from you, and we will look forward to continuing our relationship building and sharing information about what we're doing here at MidPen. So I'll conclude here, and we're open for questions.
Thank you, Jane. As a reminder, if folks would like to ask a question, if you can just type in the chat either that you have a question and I can call it so we just have the time, or you could just type your question in its entirety and we can read it and make sure that we get you an answer. Asked, he'd like to know what Midpen is doing about all their dead tan oaks.
Okay, I probably am not the best person to respond to that question, but Hank, I will get you back a response on that. I will consult with our Natural Resources Department on that question. And it looks like
I can
Mike
tell you we
is
tried
typing
as
in a
best we
question.
can. We tried our best to make use of all the experience around us, and a lot of our ideas for our trail project have come from Midpen's trails and their staging areas. So when you get to ours, if it looks familiar, there's probably a good reason. Mike would like to know if all new trails are available to bikes. The one that we're building on the southern extension will be. The answer is yes. It's going to be multimodal, just like Fife Cahill, bikers, hikers, and equestrians.
And
With
then,
permits.
yeah, that's right. There's that. So for our preserve at Purisima Creek Redwoods, we do have the multi-use trail, the Bayer Ridge Trail that goes through the North Ridge parking lot trailhead location. And then for the new trail, the Purisima to the Sea Trail, we will be going through a planning process and working with the community and the board in terms of evaluating that trail for multi-use, which would include bike uses. So that's something which will be part of the planning process for the new trail segment. You are muted, Tim.
Thank you, Jane. Do you want to see, can you see this question from Sarah? You just want to read it?
Yes, I can read it. So we've already had a motorcycle fatality at the South Purisima parking lot. Routinely seeing passing in this area, especially on weekends when the parking lot is full and people are crossing Skyline Boulevard. Any way to coordinate to remove passing in this area? So as we know, Highway 35 is Caltrans jurisdiction. And so I think those are the conversations that would need to be had with Caltrans. We are not the lead agency in terms of any design or changes for Highway 35. I think as part of the feasibility study that Aaron has talked about with regards to a crossing at Highway 35 to connect to our North Ridge trailhead parking, we will be looking at traffic in terms of lines of sight and the patterns and usage on Highway 35. So that's a really good question, and we'll be adding that to our feasibility study investigations, and then of course coordination with Caltrans.
Thanks, Jane. I'm going to give you a quick break and answer one of the questions for us. There's one coming from you about restrooms. You can read that and get your answer ready. Somebody asked about Peace Point, and I neglected putting a slide in here. I know it's on the agenda. I did want to mention this, so thanks for asking that question. I don't know if there's another name for it locally, but there's another project that is ours in the area that will help us improve our radio system. And Peace Point or Peace Hill, what do we call it, John? Peace on a mountain.
Pies Hill.
Pies Hill, sorry. Is one of the locations for one of the new radio towers. And so I think they're already building, maybe have built the driveway from the highway that goes out to that site. It'll be very near the trail when it's completed. And there are other locations in the watershed where we're putting new towers. Our current radio system is not great, and communication, especially in emergency, is a really high priority for us. And so this is one of those sites where we're going to have a new tower that will give our staff the ability to communicate with each other and also with first responders more reliably. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we wanted to make sure we mentioned. So thanks for that question. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Jane, and catch up on the restroom question.
Sure. So the question is, how will Midpen deal with restroom needs? So at our existing North Ridge parking lot, there is a restroom there. And as part of the feasibility study that Aaron's talking about, we are going to be looking at upgrading that existing restroom to an ADA accessible restroom to be compliant with the federal ADA guidelines. So that's something which will be part of the study there. I don't know if the question is also asking if we will be exploring additional restrooms. So if that's the case, yes, as part of the Prisma to the Sea Trail and Parking Area study, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, we are going to be looking at a new potential parking area down by Highway 1 and Verde Road. And at that parking location, we are looking at potentially new restrooms at that site as well. And then I think there was a question about rough dates for any of these trails.
Right.
So I think for the Prisma to the Sea Trail, we are just in the early phases of feasibility studies. It will be at least 5 years out before we're talking about doing any construction of these trails. So it'll be some time out. And then Aaron maybe could talk about the Highway 35 multi-use trail crossing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Yeah, the multi-use trail crossing is another one of those that's a ways out. As I mentioned, we have this feasibility study scope, but actual implementation of these is kind of something that we're still waiting to see and really want confirmation. That there is a place where the traffic engineers feel there's a spot that there can be a safe crossing with improvement, as well as something that can be permitted through Caltrans and other agencies as required. So that's another one that's quite a way off from construction as well. So still I think the feasibility studies we're estimating to last a couple years, given some of those bio surveys that take some time. You have to hit those plants at the right time and whatnot. So we're imagining the feasibility studies to take around 2 years from now, and expect at that time to go to our board and make a determination on next steps with this project, and whether that means taking it through permitting and implementation, we'll get that determination at that time.
And as a reminder for our new trail, if the question came after we talked about the dates, we're hoping to start construction early next calendar year in 22. It would take at least a year, probably 18 months before it was completed and then open. So that wouldn't be until the following year, 23, probably in the spring. So that's the schedule for that particular trail. And then the next question looks like it's also for us about the dead trees along, I think that's Skyline Boulevard, is SLB, under a new acronym tonight. And a lot of the trees we are taking out are in fact those dead trees. And evacuation is something that we're always thinking about because it's one of the things that we need to be prepared for. I don't know specifically if the question is about one particular location or not, but I can say that CAL FIRE is out walking the property with John and his staff on a regular basis. And if there's any particular area that we are concerned about, or that they're concerned about, or that all of you are concerned about, that we need to take a closer look at, we'd be happy to do that. Evacuation is one of our plans that we're always trying to do our best to be prepared for, because again, we know fires are going to happen, and we want to make sure that we do our best to minimize those events. But when they do, we want to be ready to respond any way that we need to, and especially to support CAL FIRE in the county for evacuations. I think John wants to add to that answer as well.
Yes, thanks, Jan, for bringing that up. If you have any relation to Dennis Ruby, say hi to him for me. We're taking care of the dead and dying on our side of the fence, so to speak, or on our fee. There's quite a lot on Caltrans, and we are working with CAL FIRE and Rich Sampson and the team doing the Skyline Boulevard fuel reduction project to to leverage all of our concerns about the channel on Cal Fire's easement there on Highway 35. So I think once we get our work done, I think I think Caltrans is going to be right behind us. So thanks for bringing that up.
And we did provide a support letter, and I think Midpen did also, to FireSafe San Mateo, and what's the other group that applied with them, John, with FireSafe? Was it Woodside? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Woodside Fire Protection. Yeah.
Joint proposal that they made to the state for funding for a grant to just this exact work within alignment of the easement that Caltrans owns. So we're hoping to bring some additional resources to bear, not just in this neighborhood, but along the entire section. I think the grant goes from 17 to 92, right?
Yes,
All the way through the county.
Yes.
So more to come on that. Hopefully they'll be successful and be able to garner some additional resources. Question about the trail. Will the proposed trail paralleling Skyline be fenced and signed to preclude wandering and trespassing? Yes. It will be fenced on both sides. The perimeter fence will stay, and there'll be a new fence on the interior as well, in case folks, for whatever reason, decide they'd like to wander down the hill. We don't want them to do that. And because it'll be permit-based, we felt like we needed to have that backup plan. And so there will be an interior fence also for the new trail. Are there any other questions? We got a thank you. Thanks, Marlene. We always like thank yous.
Yeah, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Oh, is that Jan's light that went on?
Yeah, but this is Dennis, though.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. I'm really curious about the fence portion. And hi, John. I'm one of the hike trail leaders for the North Trail.
Hey, Dennis.
Will the fence be, how far apart from the trail will the fencing be? Is it going to be like going down a cattle chute kind of thing where you've got barbed wire fencing on both sides of you? Or is it going to be a wider place so that you don't feel like you're a cow in a cattle chute? Just curious about that, because the thing about being out of nature is being out of nature and not seeing the influence or impact of human endeavors of fences and signage and all this other stuff that we tend to propagate nature with. So when I was leading a hike on the watershed last week, somebody asked about how's that fencing going to work. So so I have an answer next time I'm leading a hike. How's that fencing going to look?
That's a great question for John. He's thought a lot about this fence.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis. Thanks for that. Yeah. On the eastern side, on the watershed side, actually, there's going to be many areas where the fencing is going to be anywhere from 100, maybe 150 feet east of the actual P line of the trail. There's going to be some areas particularly where the topography is tough, to the north, those three gulches where the trail is going to be up at the top of a gulch or the top of a contour. There is going to be some fencing close there, but no cattle chutes allowed. We don't do cattle chutes, but it is going to be secure. I mean, we are, as we are a protected watershed, and right. where sometimes folks just don't cooperate, and it's going to be a wildlife-friendly fence, and we have a new specification that we've worked with the biologists that I'm quite proud of, and I think it'll be as benign as we possibly can, and still functional.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. We got another thank you from Don. You're welcome. Appreciate that. I know Jane and Aaron are also smiling, so is John.
Is it possible to direct a question to Midpen?
Absolutely.
Okay, Midpen. We live 3/10 of a mile south of the entrance to Purissima Gate 1. And when the pandemic started, parking was probably about half a mile south of that gate. And last weekend, it was past our house again. So I'm just curious, where do you think you could park these additional cars to keep them off of Skyline? And there's some issues with them parking on Skyline, even if they're over the fog line. People open their car doors thinking they're in a regular parking lot, and watching people push strollers with kids in them down Skyline to get to Gate 1 to begin their hike.
On cyclists.
Yeah, I'll start first, and then I will I can turn it over to Aaron to talk about the project that he's working on. So as you may have heard, Mid-Peninsula we completely understand the high visitation that the parks and preserves are receiving with the high interest of going outdoors. So that is one of the main reasons why we are looking at a multimodal access study in terms of the capacities that we currently have at our preserves for these, historically small parking lots. So we are trying to understand, how to better serve our visitors, and then also being a good neighbor to our neighbors, our residents who live around these trailhead parking locations. So this study will take a year and a half, 2 years to come up with some recommendations. I know currently our preserve rangers are doing their best to manage the parking congestion at our preserves and making sure that visitors are not causing too much impact on our neighbors. So that is something which our rangers are doing their best in terms of patrol and enforcement. And then Aaron with the study that he's doing for the Northridge parking lot.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jane. Thanks for getting that started. Yeah, this is, obviously a complex issue to solve with just the huge numbers, especially that we've seen with the pandemic, the huge numbers of people looking for an escape into open space. So, with the part of the feasibility study we're working on is looking at that expansion to try to accommodate more of those vehicles within kind of our preserved boundary. And with Purissima and up by the skyline, the topography really limits areas where you can put in parking areas to accommodate the vehicles. So that's why we're really looking at expanding that parking area, and part of that project, because that expansion, as you're talking about that long line of cars extending, it really would be next to impossible to accommodate all those cars within that area. We're able to expand the Northridge lot. So that's where the connection comes between the project Jane was just referring to, the multimodal access study, that the intersection between that and the project that I'm working on, the feasibility study, will really come into play with the expansion and the parking lot preliminary design, also looking at opportunities. We're trying to incorporate some measures to reduce especially single occupancy vehicles, and just reduce the numbers of cars that need to be accessing our preserve. And so seeing measures, whether it's having a portion of our parking lot that is available for carpoolers or other methods, we're going to be looking at those as part of the multimodal access study, and looking to incorporate any recommendations from the multimodal access study into our preliminary design that we come up with at the end of this feasibility study.
Will you be consulting people who live along Skyline who've been impacted by this?
Yes. Both of all of these projects that we're working on, the one that I'll be spearheading, and then the two that Jane mentioned as well, definitely will include a public outreach component, especially the multimodal access study. We definitely want to hear from the people who are living here and being impacted and understand these issues. That's something we're definitely interested in hearing from y'all.
So I would like to encourage everyone, when you get our PowerPoint, to sign up for our email notification so that you can be sure to receive public notices of upcoming meetings and surveys that we may be conducting for our projects. And we will definitely do mailings of, neighbors along Highway 35.
Good. Thank you.
Yes.
Look at the next question from Marguerite, and this might be for both of us.
Okay.
And it's, as you bring many more people, visitors to Kings Mountain area, have we thought about supporting local services such as the Kings Mountain Fire Department?
Yay.
I don't know, John, you might know more about this, and to take the first shot at it from our perspective. I can help if you need it, and then maybe Jane and Aaron, you guys can respond as well.
Yeah, good one, Marguerite. We are offering a new helipad to the north of the existing helipad there at the North Ridge parking area. But Kings Mountain Fire has helped us out quite a few times on the Ridge Trail, particularly with some accidents, pedestrian and equestrian and bicycle accidents. So that's something we need to look at. We haven't, and that's a good one. We could support the fire brigade's efforts up there. So let us chew on that a little bit, and we'll talk. We'll liaison with the brigade a bit. They do come to our annual first responders liaison meeting. We do that in May prior to fire season. We get the whole group out there. Usually down at Pulgas at the Water Temple. The last 2 years we've been doing it virtually, but I will make an effort to reach out to the brigade chief on that. And then we do have one of our employees in the East Bay is a Kings Mountain Fire Brigade volunteer, Pat Jones. So, and Pat has kind of kept up with these projects for us as a liaison back to the brigade. So I'll chew on that. I'll see what we can do. Good call.
Okay. So Marguerite, that's an excellent question. I think one of the things that we at MidPen pride ourselves in is working with other agencies in terms of mutual aid cooperation. So we have rangers who do come and patrol and make sure there's public safety measures being implemented on our trails and our parking areas. And I think all of you know that at our current Northridge parking lot, it also serves as an emergency landing zone for medevac and all that kind of stuff in the event of that need. So as part of the feasibility study that Aaron's going to be leading, we're going to look at how the emergency landing zones are going to be supported. And we are having conversations with John and Tim about that as well. So I think these are great questions. And I can also go back and check with our area superintendents, Chris Baresi, who is in charge of our ranger staff out here for any other considerations that with regards to support to the Kings Mountain Fire Department.
Mike, I see your comment about the cash donation, and John and I could do that individually, but as a organization, it's very difficult for us without some kind of proper agreement to move resources back and forth. It doesn't mean that we can't, but we have to have some vehicle to do that. But we will look at ways, whatever we can do, to support people that are helping us and responding. We do our best to make sure we stay in touch with everybody, and people are familiar with the watershed and ways that we need to work. And we try as best we can also to practice and do tabletops in advance so that we don't have that experience for the first time during an emergency. But we will follow up on this front, like John said. So stay tuned. And then Sarah asked about we routinely see bike riders in no bike zones and those that place obstacles on the trails to deter. However, we rarely see any rangers. And I think this is probably for Midpen more than us. Yeah. We have watershed keepers. That's what we call our rangers. I will say at this location, but others in the watershed, we have this problem, and it's a problem. We have people that are trespassing and making their own tracks and zooming down the side of the mountain. And we're doing our best to work on it from our end, but it's a lot of communication with neighbors, and some of these neighbors are private landowners. Some of them are also public agencies, but I don't know that we have them here, but I know if we have bikes, it's a risk, and I think that's part of why we wanted to add the fence, like John talked about, at least for the new trail. I'm going to pass it to you guys, Jane.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Tim. So I will have to definitely pass on this comment, Sarah, to our preserve rangers and to see if there have been notable incidents of when this has happened. And obviously, it's all a matter of timing if a ranger is available at the site to see this offense happening. But I will definitely pass on this comment to our rangers, and I'm happy to provide a comment back.
Thanks, Jane. Mike, we have a lot of bike riders going through Sky Moon Ranch between Burley Murray and Parissima. We tend to ignore it. I don't know this area. This is one I need some help on from you guys.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about the illegal trespassing issues that are happening between the state park, Burley Murray, and Parissima Creek Redwoods. I am not too familiar with these trespass issues that are happening.
It doesn't have anything to do with you direct. It doesn't have anything to do with you directly. It's just there's not much you can do with it. It's on Google Maps, and when people see it, they go on the trails. There's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, and as you may imagine, a lot of public agencies, we do acknowledge that there are these illegal or volunteer or social trails, whatever you call it, that are being created by different trail users in the community. So thanks for passing that along, Mike.
Okay, I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Oh, is there a question there?
Yeah, Mike, it's not a question, it's a comment. And
Go ahead.
some of the comments could sound like people that live up here are the not in my backyard kind of people, but there's a lot of us that really appreciate the fact that we have the PUC North Ridge Trail available to us. We have all the Midpen places available to us, and I think it's great that we've been able to get more people into nature than keeping them out, because if you get more people into nature, they start to appreciate it, and hopefully we'll learn how to take care of it. So, so thanks to you and John and all the Midpen people for doing what you can to have all this open space available to us.
Thanks for that. We appreciate it. And I will say, we took our project to the commission. This is a pretty heavy investment for a water agency to make in public access. And it's for the reasons you just stated. We're trying to do our best to get people out to the watershed in ways that are compatible with the way it's operated, so they can have just that experience. We want people to see it, to know it, understand it, and to love it, but not love it to death. So we're trying to find that middle ground as best we can. And John really has been the constant for our projects, and this one in particular, for going almost a couple of decades now. So he's the driver. And I think if you know him like you do from his experience on FIFO Cahill, big champion of the things you just said. And it's been really great to watch this come to where it is now. It was an idea when I started 15 years ago, and now we're getting close to building it. Very exciting time. And we really appreciate all of you weighing in and asking questions and helping us make sure we do this the best way that we can, and supportive of all of your efforts as well. So thank you for saying that. Really appreciate it.
Tim, John, Aaron, Jane, I just want to let people know we are getting close to 8:15, so I don't know if there's one last dying question anybody has. But we will be receiving, as you said, the PowerPoint. We'll send out the recording and all of the information you said so that people can sign up for your newsletters. And as Betsy said at the beginning, and you said, this is for us at KMA, this is about relationship building, and many relationships were started a long time ago. We have people who've been up here 40 plus years, and we have people who've been up here 6 months. And so we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be informed. So we really thank you for your time. And I know we all also want to thank Betsy, who liaisons with you on behalf of KMA and helped to set this up.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Really appreciate Betsy reaching out and having the opportunity. And like you said, it's just the start, hopefully. We'll stay in touch. And between meetings, if anybody has questions, please reach out and let us know. We're here, and we want to make sure you guys get answers to questions. We'll stay in touch.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.